Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's story. A CEO returns home with dreams in his heart and love by his side. But when family warmth meets unexpected secrets, will trust survive? Alex wants nothing more than to build a future. But what happens when Lytuna, the woman he brings home, senses the shadow of another in their relationship? Is it truly another woman, or just a cruel misunderstanding? Can love withstand the silent battles of doubt, or will it collapse beneath unspoken fears? Stay with us until the very end, because every look, every word, and every pause hides a truth you won't want to miss. And if you enjoy emotional stories full of twists and deep feelings, don't forget to subscribe and help us reach 10,000 followers. Your support means everything and will bring many more dramatic stories to life. So, is this love destined for peace or for heartbreak? Let's find out together. The sound of machines echoed softly in the distance, blending with the faint rustle of leaves outside the vast workshop. Alex stood among stacks of bamboo and freshly cut timber, his eyes steady yet restless, as though he was listening to something deeper than the hum of production. He had returned to his homeland not long ago, leaving behind the glitter of the city to build a foundation from the soil, from the wood, from the sweat of his own people. Around him, conversations with business partners about clean agriculture and export markets filled the air, their words weaving images of faraway lands where fruits carried the fragrance of Vietnam across seas. Yet beneath those ambitions, there lingered a quiet emptiness, a yearning he could not speak of, a quiet hunger not for success, but for belonging. The sun spilled through the high windows, dust floating like golden grains of hope, and Alex realized that what he built here was more than a factory or a trade. It was a chance to reclaim fragments of himself once lost. But even as plans were drawn, shipments arranged, and opportunities seized, the thought of Lytuna drifted through his mind like a breeze, carrying the scent of fruit blossoms. Between the weight of ambition and the tenderness of memory, Alex knew he was standing on the fragile bridge between passion and peace. The workshop roared with life, yet inside him was only silence, the silence of a man who had everything, except the one certainty he longed for. The farm was quiet except for the gentle cries of birds and the faint murmur of the wind threading through rows of trees. Lytuna sat beneath the soft shade, cradling the baby against her chest, her movements patient, almost instinctive. When Alex appeared at the gate, carrying the calm presence of someone who had long rehearsed this moment in his heart, she looked up with surprise. His hands, once stained by wood and earth, reached out carefully to hold the child, and for a brief instant the world seemed to pause. The contrast of his strong arms and the child's fragile breathing painted an image he could not forget. "I finished early today," Alex murmured, his voice both casual and weighted with unspoken longing. "And I missed you." Lytuna's smile was tender yet hesitant, as though she had learned not to trust fleeting promises. Still, when he invited her to come home with him, to let his mother see her and the baby, she did not refuse. She gathered the child's small clothes, folded with the care of someone who carried both love and fear in equal measure. As Alex watched her prepare, he felt a current of hope stir beneath his ribs. Hope that this day might be the beginning of something whole, something permanent. The baby stirred lightly in his arms, and in that fragile heartbeat, Alex wondered if the universe was urging him toward the very peace he had long denied himself. The road between them and his mother's home was more than distance. It was a journey between uncertainty and promise. The road stretched ahead, lined with fields shimmering beneath the afternoon sun, each blade of grass catching light like scattered fragments of glass. Alex walked slowly beside Tuna, the baby asleep in his arms, its soft breathing the only rhythm between their silences. The cart wheels creaked faintly, mingling with the hum of cicadas, yet neither of them hurried. For Alex, every step carried the weight of an unspoken plea that this walk toward his mother's home would mark not only a visit, but the weaving of lives together. He glanced at Tuna, who walked a little behind, her eyes lowered, her thoughts hidden like clouds drifting quietly across a bright sky. Was she nervous, or was she carrying doubts she dared not say? The baby shifted slightly, and Alex bent closer, as though to shelter both child and mother from every uncertainty waiting ahead. "It has been a while since my mother saw you," he whispered, careful, tender, as if words might startle her into retreat. Tuna nodded faintly, a small smile brushing her lips, yet in her silence lingered hesitation, a delicate veil of questions. The road was not long, yet it stretched like a test of patience, of trust. With each step, the farm faded behind them, and a threshold drew nearer. It was not merely his house they approached, but a moment of reckoning, where Alex's longing for peace and Tuna's quiet doubts would meet under the gaze of his mother, beneath the fragile roof of a family. The courtyard was filled with the aroma of simmering broth and the warmth of late sunlight spilling across tiled floors. Alex's mother stood at the doorway, wiping her hands on her apron, her face breaking into a smile the moment she saw them approach. "You're here," she said, her voice carrying both relief and joy, as though she had been waiting for this moment all her life. Tuna bowed politely, clutching the baby's small blanket tighter. But before hesitation could root her steps, the older woman reached forward, her arms opening with effortless tenderness. She lifted the baby as though cradling her own memories, her laughter trembling with happiness. The child stirred but did not cry, resting easily in her embrace. Inside, the table was already set, dishes steaming with care, each plate a silent testament of welcome. Alex watched the scene unfold, his heart swelling with a strange, almost painful mixture of pride and longing. His mother spoke gently, asking Tuna about her days on the farm, about the baby's health, about the hardships of balancing work and care. Every answer Tuna gave was met with soft nods and affirmations, as though the older woman had already chosen to consider her part of the family. At the dining table, laughter mingled with the clinking of chopsticks, and for a brief span of time, the air was filled with something rare, an uncomplicated happiness. Yet, beneath the glow of that moment, a fragile truth waited, unseen, ready to stir the calm. The laughter around the table softened into a gentle hum, like a song that might fade if one listened too closely. Alex's mother, her eyes still glowing with joy, spoke absent-mindedly while placing another dish near Tuna. "It reminds me of when she visited before. She always helped me with the cooking." The words slipped into the air with ease, but to Tuna they landed like a stone dropped into still water, ripples spreading through her chest. "She?" The question lingered unspoken, yet heavy, pressing against her ribs. Tuna lowered her chopsticks slowly, her smile steady, but her thoughts suddenly restless. Was there another woman who had once filled this space, who had already shared this warmth with Alex's mother? She tried to mask the tremor in her breathing, but her eyes betrayed her. Darting briefly toward Alex, searching for an explanation in the calm lines of his face. He seemed unaware, pouring tea, his gestures smooth as if nothing had shifted. Silence stretched between bites. The baby sleeping quietly in the next room, oblivious to the storm beginning to stir in Tuna's heart. Alex's mother continued speaking, her tone affectionate, but every word now brushed against Tuna's mind like a reminder of her fragility in this home. The food was still warm, the room still filled with love, yet for Tuna, a shadow had entered. She could not tell if it was truth or misunderstanding, but she knew in that instant. Happiness was never without its test, and trust was far more delicate than any porcelain dish on that table. The night crept in softly, shadows stretching long across the floor, while the lanterns flickered with a golden hush. Tuna sat still, her hands resting on her lap, her heart beating against the silence that surrounded her. The words of Alex's mother echoed faintly, replaying again and again. "She visited before. She always helped me." Each repetition carved deeper lines of doubt into her thoughts. Across the table, Alex laughed quietly with his mother, his voice steady, as if untouched by the tension that now wrapped itself around Tuna like a tightening thread. She wanted to believe this was nothing more than an innocent memory, a passing mention. But wasn't it possible, likely, that another woman had stood where she was standing, had been welcomed with the same warmth, the same effortless affection? Her gaze shifted to the baby, sleeping nearby, its face peaceful, a world untouched by suspicion. She longed to rest in that same simplicity, to trust without fear, yet her chest ached with hesitation. Alex looked at her then, his eyes gentle, holding a question he did not voice. In that glance, she felt both the promise of safety and the danger of heartbreak. Between trust and retreat stretched a thin line, fragile as the whisper of leaves outside. Was she strong enough to step across, to believe in him despite the shadows? Or would silence consume them, leaving love to collapse under the weight of her doubts? The room was filled with warmth, but in Tuna's heart, winter had quietly begun. The meal ended with the soft sweetness of custard apples, their fragrance drifting through the quiet room like a final note of comfort. Alex's mother smiled as she offered slices, her hands trembling with happiness while the baby stirred faintly in her arms. "Stay longer," she urged, her voice tender. "Let the child play here with me." Tuna nodded politely, but inside her thoughts were a river divided. Each gesture of kindness pressed gently against her doubt, as if urging her to surrender suspicion for peace. Yet the words she had heard still lingered, sharp and unyielding, like a thorn beneath delicate skin. Alex, unaware or unwilling to press the silence, met her gaze briefly, his eyes calm, steady, carrying a plea he never voiced. The room glowed with warmth, but within that glow, Tuna felt suspended between two worlds, one of trust, where she could rest in his arms and let time heal every scar, and one of fear, where shadows whispered of a love already shared with someone else. The baby's quiet breathing filled the pause, anchoring her in the present moment. A reminder that love, like life, was fragile and fleeting. When they finally rose to leave, the evening air wrapped around them, cool and still. Tuna held the child close, her steps measured, her heart heavy yet tender. Sometimes, she thought, the greatest battles of love are not fought in words or actions, but in silence, where trust must be chosen, or everything quietly unravels.
Alex, một CEO trẻ trở về quê hương, vừa gây dựng sự nghiệp nông sản, vừa khao khát một mái ấm bình yên. Anh tìm đến Tử Na, một người phụ nữ gắn bó cùng với đứa bé nhỏ, rồi đưa con về nhà ra mắt trong những bữa cơm ấm cúng. Mẹ cô Alex vui mừng đón tiếp, coi như Tử Na là người thân, hy vọng con trai sớm được yên bề ở thất, tưởng như hạnh phúc trọn vẹn. Nhưng bất ngờ một lời nói vô tình của mẹ hé lộ sự tồn tại của một người thứ ba. Tử Na khựng lại, hay nghi ngờ giữa tin tưởng và sợ hãi, liệu không chỉ hiểu lầm hay là sự thật đau lòng. Câu chuyện khép lại bỡ ngỡ, để lại dư âm tình yêu không chỉ tồn tại khi đủ can đảm, còn chọn niềm tin.